Yeah, welcome back fellas. Another week, another daily race C video. This week is Sardegna Road Track A2, 2 standing for we're going around backwards. A fairly new track. I don't believe we've done this track in a long time. We did do it in Group 1s the other way recently. I'm trying to think, maybe I've done it in Group 2s, but it feels like it would have been a very long time ago. So almost like driving a brand new track. The time isn't bad. Still think there's a little bit more in it as we get used to the track throughout the week. But what we will do is try and share a few of the tips we've picked up so far. Monday night we used the RCZ, did about 150 Ks there. This was about the 100-kilometre mark with the Viper. We did do another 100 kilometres after this. Got the optimal down to a 0.3 with the brakes at rear 2, but we couldn't get it across the line. Does feel a little bit faster with the rear to 2. But this run is on 0, and I did another run about exactly the same time at -1. This is probably one of the cleaner laps we did. So without further ado, let's jump on board and see how we get through turn 1. So yeah, coming across the line. We're trying to move the car over to the right before we turn in. We were trying to pick up half throttle for our deceleration. We're coming back down to about a quarter throttle now. And then wide open throttle as soon as you realise you're not going to run into that wall on the outside. Carrying the speed quote of the day. We're braking about here. This is a little bit early on this lap. We're trying to brake just in front of those shadows on the floor there. Moving onto the concrete on the left hand side, continue to trail brake down to the exit so we can brake later, and picking up wide open throttle fairly early. Being a Group 4 car, doesn't really bag up the rears as long as you're straightening the steering wheel as you applying the throttle. So as we come down here, once again moving onto that ripple strip on the left hand side before we turn in. Turn in like you're going to hit the Armco, and then we'll just slide away from it. Once again, trying not to close the throttle, trying to keep the throttle open there, and just using the closed throttle as our brakes. Trying to keep the steering wheel movement minimum through here. And we're just turning in when the Gran Turismo stuff runs out, plus a little bit. So this will go from trail braking to threshold. Just trying to get the rear turned in and keeping the car to the left hand side. We're trying to keep the apex speed of this U-turn as high as possible so we can gain maximum speed at the end of the next straight. So that's the threshold part of the braking, trail braking down into the apex again, picking up the throttle fairly quickly. Once again, this Group 4 Viper not able to bag the rears up as easy as the Group 3 car. That should give us a fairly decent maximum velocity down here. A couple of the top 10 goes to staying to the left. I was staying to the right and trying to finish this corner on the left hand side. Now in my mind I was braking right next to that 100 sign, but as you can see, that box there on the left is what we're braking next to, or the 100 shadow marker on the ground. Down to 4th under threshold, trail braking into the apex wall, picking up 3rd, trying to run that wall. And you'll see the jam on the loud pedal there. Same old story, doesn't have enough power to bag up the rears, so we are getting to wide open throttle fairly quickly. I'm trying to run under this 100 marker here, then 1000, 2000, trying to get to about the 75 meter mark before I brake. Just practice that. This is quite a long threshold braking zone into a little bit of apex and into 2nd. Now you'll see we pick up wide open throttle. You want to try and get your line so that you don't have to lift off. You want to stay wide open throttle that whole time. You'll see we had to have the lightest of light lifts there as we understeered. We can now get through there at wide open throttle and all the way down here. Here I really wanted to be on that ripple strip, and we're really trying to late apex this right hander so we can straighten the left-hander thereafter. Don't really get the job done that well on this particular lap. We are trying to keep over to that curb on the left to open up this U-turn as much as possible. A little bit of trail braking into threshold, back into trail braking for this U-turn, and wide open pretty much on the apex there, and that will give us sort of the best run to the line. So using plenty of curb on this track, pretty much like the Group 1s a couple of weeks ago. You can see all the sector notes there and the brake balance note. This particular lap is on 0. It looks a little bit quicker, so trying to brake as late as possible into here. Still trail braking down to the exit. We did take a little breakaway there, can be a touch tighter. Using that curve on the exit, then back onto this curve before entry, lift off, try not to close the throttle. You really want to, but don't do it. After the wall ends, a 1000, 2000 trail, threshold trail on the juice, wide open throttle, nice and early. Now this is where you get your little breather. If you're lucky, you'll have your ghost in the rear vision mirror and the sweat will start beading. Turning in from the right hand side of the road, so we finish this corner on the left hand side, ready for our threshold braking into trail. Wide open throttle. Pretty quickly there. I'm not sure if it's this lap, we might almost understeer into the wall. A little bit of time in here too, you can start to loosen that rear end on the entry there for a little bit of extra time. Trying to turn in off that curb, which we just missed out on. Back over to the left hand side, really trying to open up this U-turn so we can have maximum apex speed in there. Getting down to about 90k an hour there. Now the onboard for the bumper view, guys. After spending so long in the cockpit, I really don't know how you race like this. I guess that's exactly what you're thinking if you're watching the live streams, like how the hell are you racing in the cockpit view? I just feel like I've got no car width when I watch this camera angle. Just minimise your steering inputs through here, trying to carry that speed. Quote of the day, chuck it in the comments to let me know you heard me say it way too many times. During these laps it felt like I was waiting a long time to get on wide open throttle, but in the replays it's getting to wide open throttle fairly quickly. Meter board on the brakes, drop 2 gears, wait for third, and then on the loud pedal nice and quickly. Can work your way into this corner. I did start at the 100 board and I kept working my way forward 5 meters at a time. You really want to be wide open, so we just lift off as we thought we were about to run off there, but I have corrected that. We can now get through there at wide open throttle. So just adjust your line too, you can get through that last section of wide open throttle. And the grip really does, the car does really load up with heaps of grip down into that last U-turn, so you can pick up wide open throttle fairly early there as well. Yeah, so let's see how much track limits. So we're running that white line. We're going to use the curb and run into that little runoff there, onto the white line on the exit as well. I was trying to get on that curb before we turned in, using all that curb on the exit. Using this curb for turn-in. All that curb for the exit as well. Just trying to make sure the car's not jerking around too much in this view as well. Making sure the inputs are smooth. If you see your car jerking around in this view, just practice a little bit on some smoother steering inputs or some smoother throttle and braking inputs. I think the next extra few tenths is going to be throwing this car around a bit. getting a bit more slidey on the entries. Don't ask me what that camera bloke is looking at. He's obviously fallen asleep. I was trying to get the right-hand rear wheel over that curb to help shift the car around a bit, carry some extra speed, but don't think it's super necessary. And there we go, so that'll be it. So let us know in the comments how well your lap improved. If you're new here, give it the like and subscribe, and I will catch you next week.